Do we give the devil too much credit?
Brannon, this will be an interesting one today.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Hey, before we jump in too much, we got another review. Thank you for your reviews, by the way. They not only help us to spread to other people, but they help us get some feedback as well. This one's a shout out to Melanie and Chris. They were guests on our show not too long ago. And so we just wanted to, they were great guests. And we love when people shout out our guests. So we wanted to read this review. And it's simple, but it just says, thanks, Melanie and Chris. Thanks to the courageous callers and the phenomenal hosts for another incredibly relevant and real episode. Your honesty and forthrightness make this one of the very best out there. So appreciative. So shout out to Melanie and Chris. Thank you for your willingness to come on, and invitation to anyone else who would love to come on and have a conversation with Brannon and myself. We would love to have you come on and try to help you through whatever your stuff is, because it helps other people.
We got one of our most one of my most favorite courageous callers coming on today, but
this is a repeat. How many is this? Is this the fourth time over the 5 years we've been doing it? Fifth time?
Number 5.
So like once a year.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
But Tyler, before we get to him, we got back from Radiant Dawn, and right at the end, a couple of the ladies were saying like, hey, we want more Cousin Big stories.
And we want more childhood stories. And I want another one about Cousin Biggs.
Yeah. So I had one queued up, and then I forgot it, but I have I'm gonna say 2 words to you, and I want to see your reaction.
Oh no, these are the worst ones.
You ready?
Okay.
Silver Stallion.
This is not a Cousin Biggs story.
No, Cousin Biggs is a legend, but we got another legend in the family.
Yeah, another legend. Our cousin Ashton. Shout out to you, Ash. He was.
I don't think Ash ever listens, but I would love it if he did.
He probably never listens.
He's one of my favorite men in the world.
But we grew up like, it was weird. We were kind of like free range chickens with us and our cousins. Every single week we'd end up at grandma's house, and there'd be like,
you never know which one would show up,
who would be there, but it would always be like there. So Ashton's sandwiched between you and me, and in age, and he referred to himself as the Silver Stallion.
And when he was like 7 years old, he was like, I'm the Silver Stallion.
He's like, I'm the Silver Stallion. So, we talk about people like embracing their true identities. Like, we used to laugh at that, but he's the Silver Stallion.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Was it Biggs or Ash that like Grandma made that big, huge bowl of popcorn like for the girls to eat? Like we were having a slumber party and watching a movie, and it was either Biggs or Ash. They took a full gallon of milk, dumped it in the popcorn.
I don't know why, just to give the girls a hard time or something. I think it was the Stallion. I do have a story about him that was kind of crazy.
Okay.
Do you remember?
The Stallion.
He used to have a dog named Rafter, and he would ride that dog like a horse. And that poor dog, it's a little Brittany Spaniel. I don't know how it carried him. But one day he decided he wanted to get into like hunting. And so he took his dad's bow and went out in the backyard, and he started shooting arrows like into the air, and he shot an arrow into the air, and his little brother like ran through the yard, and the arrow came down and went like right through his arm. like what the heck? Like
his brother's fine. That's why I'm laughing.
Pure feral kids just like, to get turned loose in the backyard. Like,
it was a wild world, man. That was the Stallion was out hunting his little brother.
That was a completely different
wild world. So, I'm glad we survived. I'm glad we're here.
Amen.
All right. Well, let's get back to business with Ben. Ben, I'm just grateful you're here again. I'm going to turn it over to you. I told you, like, I don't know exactly what you're meaning by this question, but I'm really excited to break it down and see where we're going with it. So fill us in. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah. So first off, I just want to say that the last Rising Suns was awesome. It was really good. It was my second one. It was good to get back and see so many friends in person. and then made some stellar new friends. So just gonna put in a quick plug. If anyone out there is even slightly considering going, just pull the trigger and go. You'll make some really good friends there, and you'll have really some life-changing experiences, and then have the opportunity to stay connected afterwards, and keep making new friends and keep people in your circle. And I kind of segue with that because in one of the polo groups shortly after the Rising Sun, one of the members there was talking about how the devil was just really working on him, and he was doing this and doing that, and I was like, that sounds a little scapegoaty. Like, oh, I'm having these thoughts of lust, or these thoughts of acting out, or these thoughts that are not congruent with my nature and with who I am. Oh, it's the devil that's making me do that. And I got to wondering and wanted to have a conversation about that, particularly in Christian culture. There's a lot of that oh, the devil made me do it, and it feels like when people say that, they're trying to absolve themselves of responsibility for thoughts or actions. And it's something that doesn't sit well with me, because one of the biggest things that I needed to do in my recovery was to take responsibility. Not only responsibility for the hurt that I did to my ex-wife and for the lies, but my responsibility for every day. And there are going to be times in each day when you're going to have thoughts that are not congruent with your nature. And the question is, what do you do with them? Do you own them, or do you scapegoat them?
I love this. Tyler, do you want to start?
Oh, dude, we'll see where this goes, Ben. Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. I was honestly, after I heard that, I was like, man, I had like this drive to just sit down and talk to somebody about it. And it took me a few months to create the time to come down and to come on here and talk with you guys about it. But I knew this was going to be a good conversation wherever it went.
Yeah, well, it'll be cool. This will be interesting. I'm sure I'll say some things that people will resonate and not resonate with. I'm sure Brannon will. I'm sure you will, and it'd be kind of interesting to see what people's own takes are in the comment sections with some of this stuff. So it's an interesting question. If I'm hearing you right, I just want to make sure I'm clear on it. Is that you're feeling like there's an occasion where someone takes the victim role to the devil by giving up their accountability, by saying the devil's just working too hard on me, and somehow that means they don't have agency or choice anymore. Is that the energy that you're saying you feel from people sometimes? Or like, what?
Yeah,
Is that close?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's pretty close because we're getting into warmer weather, and it comes up a lot of times in the rooms and in recovery groups. Oh, women are going to start dressing, more immodest, or all that kind of stuff, and like they're pushing the blame outward instead of looking and saying, okay, what's my response to this? That person could choose to act or dress however they want. How I respond to it is what's important. And do I scapegoat it and be like, oh man, Satan's really tempted me today? Or do I look at it and say, okay, these thoughts aren't congruent with my nature. What's going on? What's my role in this? What's my responsibility for this?
Yeah, this could lead to a lot of different conversations. And I wonder, as I get into this, if I think there's a deeper principle here that's like very important to understand recovery. But it's like, to understand it, you have to challenge some of the ingrained programming and things that happen. So like, let me back up and maybe we'll get there. What I'm hearing you say, Ben, is like, people are saying, well, the devil made me do it, and I have to fight against the devil in order to be good, or in order to be okay. That's kind of, and then we could even throw in there, kind of in this type of thinking, is if I do good, then God is happy. If I do bad, God is unhappy. right? That kind of contingency model of God's love and worthiness, right?
Right. Yeah, it's all connected.
Yeah. So we're always under this thing of like, well, the devil's gonna push me to do bad. God's gonna want me to do good. I'm trying to do good, and there's a ledger going on,
Right.
and this whole type of a model is very problematic and very helpful for addiction.
Mhm.
And I mean, do you know why?
Why the ledger or the?
Yeah, the whole ledger, the whole
Oh
like
yeah.
keeping score and watching the devil work on you and watching God be happy, and like why is that such a problem?
Oh, Brandon, I lived that life. You know, that was one of the biggest problems that I had, and one of the biggest barriers that I had to recovery was kind of keeping that ledger in the back of my mind. Oh, you know, I had this lustful thought, or you know, I told this lie, or I was dishonest here, and you know, I got to make sure and go to church and you know, and read my scriptures and all that kind of stuff, so that I can balance it all out. You
Trying to be
know,
good.
yeah, exactly. And really, what it led to for me was kind of this almost sensation of giving up, because before I really realized that I needed to change who I was and what I was doing, a lot of times I would be like, well, I'm an addict, so this is what addicts do. So I might as well act how an addict acts, and I was miserable.
Yep. And there's an undertone of I'm just bad. Like you kind of
Hmm.
get to that place of like, well, I must be bad because I keep trying to be good and I keep failing at that, so I must just be bad, right? The devil's
Right.
winning,
Right. Yeah,
right?
exactly. And it was a lot of looking, you know, looking outside for validation. And you know, through this, I also just want to mention up front here, like I'm not saying that there isn't evil in the world and there isn't evil influence. I'm saying that a lot of times we as addicts use that influence as another crutch.
It almost, in a certain sense, reinforces what I. This is my own personal belief stuff coming out, so take it or leave it, or have your own thoughts about it. But you know, sometimes I think that the way that a lot of us, I know I did, approached our relationship with God is that even some of the natural things that occur as part of being human become villainized, and then the villainization leads to the shame, and the shame is the bigger part of the problem than the trigger itself that happened.
Mhm.
So for years, I might, you know, be in a spot where something triggers me in terms of like my sexual drives or urges or something else. And because I had the feeling, I would then turn into, oh, look at the devil tempting me, and that means I'm not good enough, and that means I'm not pure enough, that means I'll never
Mhm.
measure up, I'll be unworthy. And the shame around the actual normal human experience was more of like was a bigger tool for the adversary or for the devil than the temptation itself was. And
Mhm.
to me I think it's like I'm thinking of the Ephesians scripture. I think it's Ephesians 6 that says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And I really personally relate to the fact that I do think that there's principalities, powers, there is darkness, there is something there spiritually. But the key element is that if we understand it from a Christian perspective, what we have to combat those things is our physical body and physical experience and our ability to choose.
Mhm.
And shame takes us away from actually owning our own choices. It defines us as bad rather than saying, hey, is this effective for the life that I want to live? And that to me is, I actually believe that the adversary's greatest tool in the whole world is the shame that we give our power over to.
Mhm.
In other words, we need this kind of comes back to the book that I've written, right? Like we need to be very cautious about what we demonize and what
Mhm.
we pin the devil doing. It's like and I could give all kinds of examples, but Tyler, you remember when we went to Mexico and I dropped that thing on my toe?
You almost
and
amputated your toe. Yeah.
Almost chopped my toe off. Yeah. But that was one of the first times I've ever been to like a beach, and there was like women running around in bikinis, and I was young. I was really young. But I remember like noticing women in bikinis, right? Did the devil make me do it?
No.
You were 10 years old, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did the devil? But like what? Like I was so pure and innocent and young and like. But I'm like, I remember just like start noticing like, whoa, that like I've never seen a woman wear so little. And what's weird is I'm noticing that. So Ben, you're saying the devil didn't make me do it.
No, exactly. And it's not weird that you're noticing that. That's normal.
Right,
a lot of times, particularly in high demand religions, normal sexuality gets villainized. You know, it's normal for us to recognize and admire the forms that we're attracted to. It's what we do with that makes the difference. You know, like Tyler was saying, when we follow that up with shame, oh, you know, I shouldn't be looking at this person because blah blah blah. Or another problematic thought process is judging. Oh, you know, they shouldn't be dressing like that. They shouldn't be acting like that. They shouldn't be doing that.
Like that, like they're evil. They're evil.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're evil, or like they're trying to tempt me. But it's still all about me and how I'm responding to what's going on around me. And that's what's the important thing is how do I respond to my environment? Basically, you know, Viktor Frankl has that great statement that between stimulus and action, there's that pause. Mm-hmm. There's always that ability to receive that stimulus and then decide. We can choose, you know, like you're saying, our bodies and our ability to choose is what separates us. And so when we have those experiences, and you know, like you're 10 years old on a beach admiring the female form, was that bad?
I didn't even know, you know.
Yeah, but no, it wasn't bad.
Right.
It was just you being who you are. And then if you then follow that up with, oh, I shouldn't be doing that, you know, then blah blah blah. Now that's not giving permission to you know, go out and sit on the beach and put on your dark shade so that you can freely look wherever you want. That what it is we're always going to be in an environment where there are other humans, unless we completely isolate ourselves, which is not healthy. And other humans are going to act how they need to or how they want to, and how we respond to those actions makes the difference in how we're doing in our recovery.
Yeah, I just what you just said, Ben, and like Tyler, that scripture you shared is money. Like that is amazing if you really understand the depths of what that's saying. And then what you're saying, Ben, about like it's you know, if it's the dogma or the systems kind of pushing that shame on you, and then Ben, you're saying there's a space between stimulus and response. I have probably more hatred out there toward me because of what we're talking about than anything else. Like I've actually like Googled myself, and on Reddit, there's like threads of like, well, Brannon just tells men that it's okay to just go lust away, you know, just go do whatever you want. And the fact of the matter is, and this is what like, it takes some maturity and it takes some honesty. You have more control and power over your sexuality when you love your sexuality and you embrace it. Then you're much less likely to have it be compulsive and it runs you. And so when we hand this to the devil and we say, ooh, devil, like you're making me do this, you're in many ways saying like, okay, that like I don't have control here. And it's going to lead to you not having control. But when you don't demonize it, then you can harness it, and you can take that space between stimulus and response, and actually this this thing that Tyler and I have seen. It's your dog is on a leash. It's not running wild. So it's still there and it's part of you. And it's like, but it's a beautiful thing. It's okay. And this principle, to understand it, it kind of goes against what we're naturally just taught in our lives. And what we are taught leads to so much shame and self-rejection.
I think
Right.
it.
Go ahead, Ty. Oh, well, I was going to say that, you know, now that Ty and I both jumped in there, I totally forgot what I was going to say. So I'll let you go, Tyler, while I'm thinking about that.
Sorry, I cut off
no worries.
Sorry, I cut off your train of thought there.
Hey, it's all good.
No, yeah, I think that's it, Brannon. That what you're talking about. It for some reason I'm having a different kind of talk that I've listened to. I share it in my groups from time to time, where Jordan Peterson is talking about, and I promise I'll bring it back to the topic here, but he's talking about a harmless man is not a good man. A good man is actually a dangerous man who embodies what's called meekness, and meekness is one who has a sword and knows how to use it, but chooses to keep it in its sheath. And someone who actually comes to know themselves, to know their capabilities and their powers and the possibilities of where that could go. You know, like if you ask people if they could possibly have ever been an SS guard for Germany in World War II, everybody says no way. And yet when you go and you look at research projects that were unethical, but they got away with them because they didn't have ethics yet. Yeah, have you guys heard of the prison study? Where they would put random people in and they would simulate a prison and they would randomly assign the guards versus the prisoners, and within like 2 days it would decompensate to just like complete abuse. And then they'd go and they'd switch the roles, and people who were the prisoners would be like, I never treat somebody like that. I would never do. Like 3 days later, they're doing the exact same thing as the people that were treating them that way. And because we're unwilling to acknowledge that we're capable of that darkness, we actually let it run rampant in our lives rather than going and understanding and knowing and harnessing and even channeling some of that energy towards the right and good purposes. You think about sexuality in general. It gets so villainized, and then it gets taught in really unhealthy, false ways on both sides of the spectrum, both way like overbearingly critical, controlling, and also way like too focused on just the physical expression or whatever. But the middle ground is where the power comes together and you go, I need to treat this with respect because it is so powerful and because it's got the capacity for either great good or great harm. It's like nuclear power.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I really like that quote because that's absolutely true. When we know ourselves and we know we have the capability to do harm or whatnot, and we choose not to, that's much more powerful than just kind of going the easy route sometimes. A simple example would be, your kid comes home and you told them to wash the dishes or whatnot, and the dishes aren't washed. It's much easier to just yell and scream and punish and do all that. And it's much more meaningful to sit down with them and say, hey, I asked you to do this. Can you help me understand why it didn't get done? And the difference between the two of those is the difference between, developing a good relationship with yourself and kind of walling yourself off and keeping your emotions from being free. And I did remember what it was I was going to say. I think a lot of times, Brandon, when you were talking about getting that feedback that, oh, he just tells men to go and engage in their lust, people don't understand the key feature to understanding and knowing your sexuality is you don't have to act on it.
Yes.
Just because you know it, just because something's in your arousal template. So just because there's something that gets you aroused and really hypes you up sexually doesn't mean you have to act on it. Understanding it and knowing it is hugely beneficial.
I would venture to say that every person has things in their arousal template
Mhm.
that would be problematic for them to act on. And
Mhm.
so the key is to acknowledge and understand that that's there, but then but then choose what consequences you want in your life. This actually goes really well with, since we're all sharing quotes. I have one, and but I hesitate to do this because I don't look at our sexuality as the dark side or the shadow. But a lot of times it is looked at that way, and I think if we can kind of use Jung's philosophies with this, it works well. But Carl Jung explored the shadow famously,
Mhm.
and he says the shadow is the repressed, unconscious, and often dark side of the personality. Um, he believed integrating this aspect is vital for wholeness. And this is what he said: everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is.
Mm. Mhm.
So do you hear the paradox there in
Yep.
what Jung is saying?
Mhm.
In a certain sense, the more that we step into like full authenticity in the noonday sun, basically, the shadow integrates itself and casts less of the broader damage.
Exactly. And do you
Mhm.
see how that applies perfectly to? It's a whole different way of thinking about our sexuality,
Right.
than just blaming the devil for, like, giving me this thing inside of me that I have to feel
Mhm.
guilt and shame about all the time. It's like, oh yeah, if I embrace this, then I am whole, and it's in my conscious life. It's a beautiful
Mhm.
thing, and it doesn't become so black and dense and problematic.
I think part of that too, Brandon. We got a comment here that was just said, "Don't forget to read the verse after what she quoted." He quoted the next verse, and it's basically, so the first verse was, "We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." And then this comment just came through: "Don't forget to read what follows." And he used a different version than the one I'm quoting, but they mean the same thing. "Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having
Mhm.
done all to stand." So it's not that you are the evil one.
Mhm.
Put on the armor of God, or in essence, come to know your weapons of war, come to know your
Mhm.
protections and your weapons, so that in the evil day you can stand, which is, to me, in my world, I've moved away from like good or bad a lot. And I
Mhm.
ask myself, what's effective towards my overall goals?
Mhm.
And if I have the right weapons of war towards effectiveness, and then we go back to what you were saying, Ben, and I always claim the one gift that I have been given by God is my choice, I have to own my choices. So I can either choose towards what you might call an evil end, but that would just be an ineffective and tragic end, a damning end, so to speak, not damning in the sense of fire and brimstone and you suck, but damning in terms of progress. Or I can choose effectiveness and use my tools towards continually uncovering and unlocking other aspects of my identity and living my full purpose. Right.
Right.
There's no shame involved in that when I just own the
Mhm.
choice.
Right. Right. And I think that one of the biggest things that's helped me in recovery is accepting, um, if you talk about internal family systems and looking at the addict from that perspective, is being able to acknowledge the the benefit. A lot of people are like, how can you say that it was beneficial? But I would not be where I am today without it. Those addictive tendencies helped me to deal with stress, and they were less effective choices. You know, Absolutely, they were less effective choices because they were causing harm, and they still had a measure of effectiveness. And I think that as I really like that viewpoint of, is this choice effective or less effective, as opposed to good or bad. And that's something that I try to help my children and other people, is like, there's no bad choice. I firmly believe that when people are faced with a choice, they make the best decision that they can for themselves in that moment. Now, you fast forward through life, and you look back and you say, wow, that may not have been the best choice, it still doesn't diminish the fact that it was the best choice that you had in front of you at the time. And as we look at that and we accept that, that we're making choices that were the best for us at that time, then we can give ourselves a lot more grace when we make less effective choices and see the unwanted consequences of those.
I love this discussion. Jung says to hold your shadow in front of you because it can only take you down from behind. But another famous person, Christ, if you think about the two great commandments, and we're really maybe going deep here, but so what are the two great commandments, guys?
Love God and love yourself.
Love God and love others as yourself. There's
as yourself.
Yeah, but implied in that is loving yourself.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's left out. It's love God and love your neighbor. But like, if you think about the compassion you have for others compared to how much you beat yourself up, like, well, I can still see their goodness. Ben, you were on the polo yesterday and just giving love to all these guys and they're like self-rejecting and beating themselves up and like wanting to do different this and that. And like, I'm sure your heart's going out to them, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, and in part is because I lived that life. I lived the life, and I went to, as a part of my recovery journey, I went to a 2-week intensive treatment group in Colorado, and one of the most impactful things that one of the therapists said to me was, he looked at me and he goes, Ben, you can have grace for all of these guys. Why can't you have grace for yourself? And I was like, what do you mean? And my first thought was, I don't deserve it. And then I was like, wait a minute, how am I different from these guys? And it really helped me to accept myself and to be able to look and say, and have the current attitude that I have, that I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to make the best choice, as another podcaster, Jackie Pack, and the hers is Thanks for Sharing is her podcast. Love listening to that. But she always talks about making the next right choice. What's the next right choice? And as we focus on making the next right choice, then we're able to have more focus and then take ownership on it. Because sometimes when we make what we feel is the right choice, we have unwanted consequences. And we can own those unwanted consequences because we can look back and say, I chose this. And then for me anyway, it makes going through those consequences easier. It doesn't make it easy, it makes it easier because I can take that ownership and say, you know what, I felt like it was the best choice at the time. This is the consequences of it. I don't like it, and I'm still okay.
Right. Yes.
It comes back to choice again, and what you're saying, Ben. This is for the people who are already riddled with shame. This is going to probably not sit very well, but in essence, what you're saying is someone who claims to believe in Christ but can't accept His grace isn't really believing.
Right. But Tyler, they would say, but hang on, I am accepting the grace by doing all that I can do, and then Christ's grace is sufficient. So if I
accept that all that you can do would also be receiving the grace.
Right, but I got to work harder. I got to be better. I'm bad. I know I can do better. I know I can. Satan's winning. And once Satan doesn't win, then Christ will love me.
Yep, I got to read scriptures harder. I got to pray more. I got to do all those things. But it's all, when I was doing those things, it was all on the ledger, going back to the ledger. It was all making sure I got those positive ticks on there. And it wasn't because I was trying to better know myself. And by better knowing myself, it's helped me to come to a much better space in where I can interact with people, and I can kind of see them where they're at and understand, okay, I get why you're in this space. Now, how do we get you out of it?
Yeah.
It seems that there's an order, and this is just my own personal journey, so people may not relate to it, but I relate to what you're saying, Ben, that I spent most of my life and the worst parts of my addiction in the performance for God's grace. And when things got put in a slightly different order and I had some kind of powerful, broken spiritual moments, and there was grace when there was none deserved, that started to shift some things. And what's interesting is that once the acceptance of that grace starts to flow, you feel the love of God, the love of Christ, the power of the atonement, then all of a sudden the energy towards read your scriptures or go to church or pray more or have a relationship with God, it's more of a, I want to come to know God more fully because I feel that grace, rather than I better hurry and do this so I can get it. And that then moves us into choices where we're now making choices that take better care of ourselves because we're coming to know God more fully.
But how was there grace when there was none deserved?
Well,
Like,
that's the
how did
question:
that happen?
does grace generate? Is it kind of like, and this is the question people will probably debate all over the place, does grace generate because I go and do 10 things and all of a sudden I've formulated this grace? Or is grace already completely all around us, that the atonement of Christ has already been produced, right? So it's already here potentially, and I'm the one using my choice to reject that it's already full in this room. This room is full of grace right now.
Tyler, to me, the answer to this is so obvious, but it's not obvious to everybody. I just think about like the way you love your girls. Do you love them because they've done 10 good things and now you can be like, okay, now you've earned my love, so I'll show up for you?
You know what's sad is, of course, I love them no matter what, but I tend to compliment them on their performances.
Right. So like the human us comes in and the imperfect love comes in, and it's about performance.
Yeah, even though I don't intend it to be, that's
Right.
where it naturally flows.
And yet deep down in your soul,
I love them no matter what.
See? And like, does God not love us that way? And so that undeserved grace, I was talking to a guy years ago, and he was very religious, even scrupulosity was going on. And so he would set these really stringent bottom lines. And if he broke them, then he would go through a series of punishments so he could then get right with God. And then he'd come into group and he was like, so like just kind to his fellow group members and just loving to them. And I was talking to him and I'm like, help me understand this system that you're working. Like, how does this go for you? And he's like, well, I'm good. And so I'm gonna take the consequences. They weren't consequences. These were punishments. And we got into this conversation where it really boiled down to like, the atonement is good enough for everybody else, but I have to work it for me. Like, Christ's grace isn't sufficient for me because I have to fix this first and foremost. And I can't just rest in the arms of love and accept myself where I'm at. I have to work it. And when we talk about the devil, where is the devil really working here? It's almost backwards. The devil is working in that place of self-rejection. Disguised. I asked him, like, why don't you let go of this? And he said, because I'll go do bad things. Like he's continuing to relapse because he's trying to do good things. And there's where the devil's so cunning and tricky, right? You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Self-rejection. God doesn't give us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Self-rejection every single time is coming from Satan. And so when we go to use Satan to like be good, that's not helping you be good.
Right.
The atonement is.
Yeah, and it's because what and I just had this realization that like really what the main goal is the Satan's main goal is for us to not know ourselves. Because when you think about all the, like, if you go back through and you think about all the stuff that we've talked about, basically what it's come down to is do we know and accept ourselves? And when we know and accept ourselves, it can make working on ourselves and improving ourselves so much easier, because you're not fighting. You're just accepting. And I think in many ways, Buddhist teachings have it 100% correct. You are who you are today because that's who you're supposed to be. That's who you're supposed to be today. And whoever you are tomorrow is who you're supposed to be tomorrow.
Mhm.
And it's just a matter of accepting this is where I'm at today.
Which does not lead to just running wild in an addiction,
Mm-mm.
right?
No, it absolutely does not. What it's led to in my life is a lot more grace for myself, and recognizing that today wasn't the perfect day. We all get up in the morning, we have goals. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this out today. And I used to really shame myself when I didn't hit all those things that I wanted to do in that day. Now it's like, okay, I chose to do this instead. And you know what? Was it a less effective choice? Could have been, but it was the choice that I made, and it's the choice that I own.
Yeah.
I think if you go one step further with that, from the concept of faith, is now you're owning your choice. You're having your in-body human earthly experience to utilize your choice to learn and gain experience while relying on the grace of God. And if you add in faith, faith is a belief in, really, it's choosing the acceptance of that grace. And it's also then acting according to the result. And so, like, if you look at it, sorry, I'm busting out scriptures today.
I love it. Preach, baby.
Bring
This
on.
is great.
But here's another thought that just kind of came to my mind is we're talking, this is always the constant battle, but I think they actually work really beautifully together. Ephesians 2 says, "For by grace ye are saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast." But here's the next verse. Verse 10 says, and this is what I think is, when we accept with faith this grace, we come to an acceptance of this: for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath ordained before we should walk in them. So in essence, when we receive that grace, when we act in faith, that action is an internal love-based direction towards good works. And so my own personal experience is that when I've felt the grace of God in my life, when I've felt that unconditional love, the energy of that love leads me to want to take care of myself and other people better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm more likely to make better decisions, even if I still make mistakes.
Well, and let's even take this principle, and obviously you don't have to give any details here, but like when you act in love with your sexuality, think about the way you act with a partner. And so, like, I guess what I'm saying is, when we can embrace who we are as our God-given nature, and then bring that sexuality into play, that act of lovemaking is probably the closest that we can get to God in this world. And it's like so beautiful and amazing, but that comes through sexual self-acceptance. It comes through acting from a place of love, not from a place of fear.
Or consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this like, really, I don't think it's a fine line, but it's like,
Mm-hmm.
when I accept who I am fully as a sexual being, but also I accept who I am fully as a soul that is loving and kind and patient. Those things coming together create love making. They don't create destruction. And so if I take my sexuality and I reject it, I put my shadow behind me, I stuff it down, then it starts coming out sideways. I start to consume, I start to use. The grace of God is not within me. It's not within me. And my self-rejection is, then I go do harmful things to people.
Mm-hmm.
And
So,
myself.
yeah, it's a whole different
Right.
way of thinking about it. Like, it's
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have that battle mindset, oh, I'm going to fight this. and it creates this energy that creates separation and distance from a part of yourself. Whereas, like you're saying, if you take the attitude that I'm accepting this as a part of me, then you're accepting yourself as a whole, and you're able to more easily move through life when as a whole, as opposed to multiple parts that are separated.
Yeah. Can I do?
Yeah, go ahead, Brannon.
Oh, since we're on scriptures, Proverbs 17:22. A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, that's how God wants us to operate. We're here
Mm-hmm.
to be in our joy. And Ben, this might be my favorite topic. Like seriously, like this, the principle we're talking about today is probably more important than anything we've ever talked about on our podcast. And when we talk about Reclaim Your Heart and the programs that we put people through, we're trying to get them to understand this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's scary for a betrayed partner because your sexuality can hurt me. That's scary. I'm afraid there. But what's not scary for a betrayed partner is a man or a woman who can stand in their truth, fully love themselves, be wholehearted, and create trust. And so that's our goal. Our goal is not fear and control and self-rejection. That will never create safety.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Brannon, just to outline some of the principles we've talked about, because you said they're that important, it's the combination of acceptance of grace, complete self-acceptance, and ownership for our own choice and agency.
Yeah, the consequences. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and this is not where I saw this going. Like we talked about at the beginning, this could go many ways, and I'm glad that we went here because I agree wholeheartedly with you, Brannon. These principles are the biggest influences in my recovery.
Yeah.
I'd agree myself too. Like if I look at what moves the needle and all the other stuff I do on the daily, when it's done from that energy, it's really effective. And when it's done from an energy of, coercion or power or force, it's drudgery. But that grace, truly amazing grace.
Ben, I didn't know you were starting a church, man, but I'm in.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
It'll be the least stressful church you've ever been to.
I love it. Yeah, just basking in love and acceptance.
Yep, exactly.
and accountability.
Yes,
of course, always.
Yeah.
And who I think the biggest thing about accountability that sometimes can get lost is we need to be accountable to ourselves. That's who I'm like again, speaking from my experience, when I was unaccountable to myself, that was always the first step in being unaccountable to others. I'm much more able to be accountable to others when I hold myself accountable.
Yeah. I think I've told this story before, and I think it'll fit, and I don't want to railroad it right before we finish, but years ago, my client that came in, this like young kid, he was a virgin, and he was acting out like in all kinds of different ways with his sexuality. And he came into the office and he said, I think I want to just like leave the church I'm in, just throw everything to the wayside. And I don't know where he heard this, but he said, I heard that as an American, and I don't know where he heard this. I heard as an American, I can go down to Brazil and just have sex with all kinds of girls, like just sex, like all the time, And I'm kind of sitting back listening to him. And what do you think I said to him?
Make your choice. Think about your consequences.
Yeah. That's where I went with it. Was like he was kind of shocked because he was trying to get me to talk him out of it. He's like, oh, and he was trying to get me to be like, don't do that, don't throw everything away. I said, well, if that's what you feel called to do, then maybe you should, but just understand, like the full like everything you're choosing? What are the consequences of that? And so there wasn't any bit of like rejection of the desire that he has. There was complete like, hey, you have that desire. Maybe you need to follow that, but please be honest with yourself about what you're actually doing here. Right. So can you see the principle there of like, like, and he ultimately didn't end up in Brazil. Because if he were honest with himself, I don't think he'd really want all of the consequences of doing something like that. He doesn't choose that, even though he desires it. And it comes back to your point, Ben, of like, just because it's on that template or just because that desire is there doesn't mean you have to go act on it. And so you can still radically accept your template and be okay with who you are and not use Satan. So
interesting discussion today, Ben. We got a couple people making some comments over here too. I know that this stuff hits a lot of nerves, and it's good for us to think through things. Hopefully, hopefully if you're listening to this and it's stirring some things inside, we just challenge you to lean into that and be curious with your own thought processes and what feels true and right for you. And then if you have impressions, to take actions on those impressions. And we love having you here with us. We love having you come on again, Ben. It's always good to see you and feel people who don't know Ben, if you ever get a chance to go to one of the retreats and he happens to attend, get ready, because you will get a back adjustment and a whole bunch of love every time he gives you a hug.
That's right.
So, but yeah, it's really good to see you, Ben. Thank you for coming on, for stirring up some thoughts here today. So to our listeners, we're glad that you're here with us. If this is helpful or you know somebody who it might be helpful for, please feel free to share it. And until next time, keep on keeping on.
See y'all.